The next item of business is consideration of Business Motion 20746 in the name of Graham Day on behalf of the Parliamentary Bureau on changes to business. Any member who wishes to speak to the motion should press their request to speak button now, and I call on Graham Day to move the motion.
Move, Presiding Officer.
Thank you, Minister. No member has asked to speak to the motion. Therefore, the question is that motion 20746 be agreed. Are we all agreed? Yes. The motion is therefore agreed. The next item of business is topical questions, and at question number 1, I call Jackie Bailey.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government what its response is to reports that a former Chief Nursing Officer offered the parents of Sophia Smith £20,000 and a holiday following her death in the Queen Elizabeth University Hospital in 2017.
Cabinet Secretary Neil Gray.
Presiding Officer, I begin by offering my deepest condolences to the Smith family who so tragically lost their daughter Sophia in 2017. I cannot begin to imagine the pain Sophia's family has gone through, and I appreciate that the inquiry into the Queen Elizabeth University Hospital will have reopened those wounds. We established the inquiry led by Lord Brodie so families like the Smith family can get the truth that they deserve. And it's vitally important that the independence of Lord Brodie's inquiry be respected and be free to come to conclusions without any attempted political interference. The matters in Jackie Bailey's question relate to issues in consideration by Lord Brodie, and as she knows, it would be inappropriate for the Government to comment further. However, I will again repeat to this chamber, as I have during the last 4 weeks that the Scottish Government treats patient safety with the utmost importance. It's why we have a Patient Safety Commissioner and why we also established a new Safety and Public Confidence Oversight Group for the Queen Elizabeth University Hospital.
Jackie Bailey.
These are matters in the public domain. This concerns an employee of the Scottish Government. It is entirely appropriate that the Cabinet Secretary should respond, because these are very serious allegations against the Chief Nursing Officer, Fiona McQueen, which must be investigated. And we know that they tally with the evidence given by Dr Christine Peters to the hospital's inquiry. The Chief Nursing Officer is quoted to have said, and at one point she said that she could not understand why the Health Board had not just offered the families 50 grand, which is a trip to Disneyland, rather than deny that there had been harm caused. So does the Cabinet Secretary believe Dr Peters and Sophia's parents' account, or does he believe Fiona McQueen and her current lack of recall?
Cabinet Secretary.
Presiding Officer, it's not for me to judge. It is for the independent public inquiry chaired by Lord Brodie to get to the truth of these matters. And we establish public inquiries so that they can get to the truth, independent of ongoing commentary or political interference. That is at the heart of the credibility that is gained through having independent public inquiries. So I believe that these are matters that are under consideration by Lord Brodie, and it's right that he comes to his own conclusions without any interference.
Jackie Bailey.
I asked a simple question of the Cabinet Secretary, and it's whether he believed Sophia's parents and Dr Peters, or whether he believed Fiona McQueen. Sophia Smith's family have effectively been offered a bribe rather than the truth. The Queen Elizabeth University Hospital scandal showed just how a culture of cover-up has grown on the Scottish Government's watch. His predecessor, Jean Freeman, committed to a review of the culture in the NHS at the same time as announcing whistleblowing champions, which was very welcome. But why has no successive Cabinet Secretary taken forward this proposal in the last 5 years?
Cabinet Secretary.
I'm very well aware of the work of the Independent National Whistleblowing Officer, because I met the new incumbent of that post last week, and I've met all of the local whistleblowing champions as well, because I take the culture of our NHS and social care services incredibly seriously. We must have a speak-up culture. We must support patients and staff to be able to speak up and to be able to comment on patient safety issues, and for their concerns to be taken seriously. That is very clearly the approach that I have put forward as my expectation of board chairs and chief executives, and I will take more than just a dim view. I will insist that we have the culture of openness and transparency within our health service. That's the route through which we get the safest possible patient care coming through.
Sandesh Gulhani.
Thank you. A declaration of interest of practising NHS GP. A grieving family has alleged
that the former Chief Nursing Officer and current Chair of the Scottish Police Authority offered them £20,000 and a holiday following the death of their baby. She even went as far as to suggest that this was the maximum they might expect if they pursued compensation through the courts. She must answer questions on these alleged repulsive and crass comments. If she was this heartless over the death of a baby, how can we trust her to be chair of the Scottish Police Authority or hold any senior role in public life? I've written to the Justice Secretary and also the Justice Committee on this matter. Has the Minister, the Cabinet Secretary, spoken to her about this? And does he agree with me that she should appear in front of the Justice Committee?
Cabinet Secretary.
Those that appear before the Justice Committee are for the members of the Justice Committee to set out. The questions that are before us, both from Jackie Bailey and now from Sandesh Gulhani, are under active consideration by Lord Bordey and the public inquiry. It's right that we allow them the space to come to the determinations, including on these questions that have come through, the evidence through the public inquiry, so that the families who are at the heart of this, the Smith family included, get the answers that they deserve, and that is the reason as to why we constituted the public inquiry in the first place.
Stephen Kerr.
This isn't commentary or political interference. The Cabinet Secretary is absolutely wrong to say that, and neither should the inquiry be used as some kind of shelter for wrongdoing, which is being revealed by whistleblowers in the here and now. The policy of the Scottish Government cannot be speak up and be ignored. So my question is very simple. Who is investigating these allegations? Who is going to uncover the truth? Please do not answer the inquiry. This is a current issue that needs to be explained now.
Cabinet Secretary.
Presiding Officer, the reason that we have a public inquiry is to independently get to the answers to these questions, so nobody can hide behind a public inquiry. A public inquiry gets to the truth without fear or favour, without any political slant coming attached to it. It is about an independent, judge-led process established in order so that the families can get to the truth. That has got to be what is the heart of this. The families who are deserving of answers as to what happened at the Queen Elizabeth University Hospital, and indeed the hospitals in Edinburgh as well that are part of this inquiry, and we await their judgment and we'll allow them to do their job without interference.
Brian Whittle.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. This is hardly a unique situation. Nearly 10 years ago, my own constituent, Fraser Morton, was in a similar situation where he was offered compensation not to forward his case. Why is it, Cabinet Secretary, that we continually have this situation where we'd rather pay compensation than take the opportunity to learn from mistakes? This culture has to change.
Cabinet Secretary.
We are seeking to learn lessons from what has happened in the Queen Elizabeth University Hospital. That's why the public inquiry was established, to get to the truth, in order to give the families the truth that they deserve. In terms of any actions around compensation or any consideration like that, that is up to boards to determine in consultation with patients and their representatives. I believe that we should always seek to learn lessons. That's why we have taken forward a more robust approach to significant adverse event reviews, and in this case, why we have taken forward a public inquiry.
Question number 2, Stephen Kerr.
To ask the Scottish Government what its response is to the final report and recommendations of the Sentencing and Penal Policy Commission in light of the reported high levels of public concern regarding the findings.
Cabinet Secretary Angela Constance.
Presiding Officer, the Scottish Government welcomes the publication of the Independent Sentencing and Penal Policy Commission's considered and evidence-based report. Prison will always be necessary, but we must accept the need to tackle an increasing prison population. Many of the recommendations reflect what is known, that community-based sentences are more effective than short prison sentences at reducing reoffending, which means fewer victims and safer communities, something we all want to see. I will be making a statement to Parliament on Thursday to present the Scottish Government's initial response to the report, acknowledging that the breadth of recommendations will require detailed consideration and prioritisation.
Stephen Kerr.
In 2016 and again in 2023, the man who threatened to kill me was sent to prison. In 2022, he was arrested in the street leading to our home. My wife was terrified. Under the proposals in this report, that individual would not receive a custodial sentence at all. This report is a gift to criminals and a slap in the face to victims of crime across Scotland. It's been produced by people who are far more concerned with offenders than with the harm they cause. So will the Cabinet Secretary rule out implementing any recommendation from this report that would remove or restrict the use of custody in cases involving credible threats of violence? Yes or no?
Cabinet Secretary.
Presiding Officer, I am of course deeply sorry and concerned to hear about the member's experience. I can't imagine how that would have felt towards him, or indeed the distress and trauma for his dear family. Can I say in all seriousness that victims are paramount in our considerations, and public safety will always be paramount to me. The crux of this matter for me, and I'm very sorry, Presiding Officer, and to the member, that I can't reduce this debate to a knee-jerk or two-dimensional response, because the issues are complex and significant. But the crux of the matter to me, and this has always been the case for me, is that a high prison population does not necessarily equate to a safer Scotland. And that's why I commissioned this report so that we could look sincerely and deeply at the evidence, because I know at the end of the day we all want safer communities, less victims and fewer crimes. And in that we have to have the courage to follow the evidence and engage with victims and communities about what will work at the end of the day to make them safer.
Stephen Kerr.
Locking up violent criminals does make Scotland safer. And that's where the public is on this question. And I think the Cabinet Secretary knows that, because my experience, Presiding Officer, is not unique. Across Scotland, there are tens of thousands of victims. I've seen people who harmed them, threatened them, robbed them, either released early or not imprisoned at all. Victims deserve a justice system that takes their safety seriously and puts public protection first. SNP policy has consistently moved in the opposite direction, weakening judicial discretion and prioritising offenders over victims. Victims will find this report terrifying. Will the Cabinet Secretary commit to a formal consultation with victims and victims' organisations and guarantee that their views will carry decisive weight? She used the word paramount earlier. Will they be paramount in the Government's response? Yes or no?
Cabinet Secretary.
Presiding Officer, I want to assure Mr Kerr that I spend much of my time engaging with victims and victim support organisations on an ongoing basis. And it's also important to note that the Commissioners also engaged with victims as well. And what I know from my engagement with victims is that at the very core of a victim's concern is they do not want the experience that they had, the crime committed against them, to happen to anyone else. And that means for justice to be served, yes, it's about prevention, yes, it's about punishment and deterrence, but it's also about rehabilitation and reintegration, bearing in mind that the majority of people who are incarcerated will one day return to their community. And on that note, in terms of public opinion, I did notice that in the Commission's report that it says that 92% of people agree that prisons should help to change behaviour, and that 55% agree that prisons should be for those who commit the most serious offences.
Jamie Hepburn.
Whilst the Scottish Government is taking action to try and tackle the challenge around the prison population, we still continue to see a large number of short-term prison sentences. What assessment has been undertaken by the Government in terms of the impact of those sentences in contributing to some of the challenges we see in the prison population?
Cabinet Secretary.
Presiding Officer, while the longer-term trend has been away from shorter-term sentences, it is still the case that the most recent figures show that 73% of these sentences are 12 months or less, and that's a high. So there's a high number that continue to be imposed despite the presumption against them. And as an illustrative example, on the 2nd of February, there were 562 prisoners with an overall sentence of 12 months or less. Now, there are complex reasons for that, and we are working to understand how the current presumption is operating and recognise that there may be merit in exploring whether any further steps should be taken, because we know that short sentences disrupt lives, including family relationships, housing, employment and access to health care, all of the things which help to reduce that risk of reoffending and therefore put pressure on our prisons and in turn our communities.
And Pauline McNeill.
The Sentencing Commission's report suggested that only suspects with a prospect of being sent to jail for more than 2 years following conviction should be held on remand. And the report says that remanding people accused of minor crimes or those who fail to attend court due to disorganisation is disproportionate. It also points out that the high use of remand often results in the loss of housing, employment, income and family stability. Can I ask the Cabinet Secretary, is that a view the Government supports in relation to remand? And can the Cabinet Secretary outline how the Scottish Government plans to improve ways in which those who are bailed into the community are supported and monitored to give that reassurance to victims?
Cabinet Secretary.
Presiding Officer, there's a lot of detailed questions in what Ms McNeill proposes, but if I can reassure her that given the breadth and complexity of the recommendations in the report, that we will be considering the recommendations carefully. What I am acutely aware of is that our remand population is currently higher than it was in pre-COVID times. Ms McNeill will be aware of the new bail test, which was finally implemented in May this year. So there have been some changes to bail, and in particular there has been progress made around bail assessment and bail supervision. But where further work needs to ensure is around bail support to enable people or to increase the prospects of people meeting their requirements. And of course there's considerable progress, but much more to do around the use of technologies. And I will of course come back to Parliament in a few days where we can continue this discussion and debate in the collaborative tone that Ms McNeill has exemplified today, because this the work done by the Commission is independent and it is important that we can all pursue these matters together.
Thank you. That concludes topical questions.